Babaderos. Babaderos, sí. I get messed up when I started with the YouTube video. And I forgot what this is about. In other words, World Trade Center attack. Leading up to it and since, there are people from Pakistan and people are on and off Tucker Carlson's college who are involved with pilots, who are involved with other natures of federal evidences crimes with names on off my street from other areas, who are planting evidences on off Zion Street next to Trinity College and on off Central Connecticut State University, also with intelligence families and campuses, people associated with them next to them. These are judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic medical families, attaching little kids to fake ties and fake natures of ties to others, planting evidences on all sides in criminal and civil cases. And that is used also at other locations, where how they're used remotely, criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw. Also, as people who were involved consciously sensing when people use what we are given by nature to discern regarding what American history was about and regarding our potentials now. See, when Tucker Carlson has the video I did a video on, he had communications with Vladimir Putin from Russia, and they cut him off for the same reason. They have American history. They have our founders behind the face of James Madison and how they took his plan and got George Washington to agree with it. And they have other communicators for it. And they use how they're also victim predators, hyper victim, hyper predators, other founders that our founders had to counter extort. See, our founders had to counter extort at 13 locations. And that Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, to make it a state. 13 states, those were colonies involved with slavery entrenched. We have other artistically collusions too, with the differences between who's guilty of it. As the worst campuses and the best campuses, you guys been worse than criminal incompetence, keeping blame on other things, others, ourselves. What entrenched that slavery? What forced it entrenched after our founders were even dead? The what's lying about them in their face, in our faces. Certain type of victim / hyper victim for what I caught them doing at grammar schools and between different schools. That's how they mix up descriptions of it in the future. See, the intelligence community does little tricks, so no one's going to go back and speak about details. But they lie about that too, because they have the right to lie and to hide things because it's too expensive. That's why and how all these countries that have nuclear weapons shared with each other, they're still here, even though it's known, they're not allowed to talk about it. How they're shared on and off campuses, using words like crimes, using phrases like criminal justice, crime and punishment. They have using words like delusions. They're tactically delusions raw, A through Z countries. The suburbs were designed before our founders were born, with all kinds of hyper-archaeological evidences and demonstration of a breaching method having tactically denatured them to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that nature would demonstrate, and to employ those demonstrations instead, also containing demonstrations of the breaching method, instead employed blamed on other things, others yourselves. So, for example, this is nothing personal against the people who went to my schools, the Wethersfield police and the FBI and other police departments and people that used to live in my area. They're increasingly involved with confessions that were made by the police, by the people that the campuses I went to. Increasingly, they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There's a Ray Reynolds who's involved with men and women of medical and his family and people tied to him intimately in other ways. Interstates involved with medical corruption. I'm not saying he knows about it. These are also state police involved with federal evidences crimes with him and with Wethersfield police. And with, these are people on off the state judicial branch offices, on off the state correction offices. So that was when I was in kindergarten. I had nothing to do with them. I tried to make a fake exception for that. In other words, because in other words, and then this is increasingly people. In other words, then the next year, there's a Mark Violet who said made confessions tied to people involved with that, and a Christopher Walters has roles with people on off that campus I went to after that campus and after the first campus I went to in Wethersfield, the second campus I went to in Wethersfield for a year. It has all these people that fake conversations with me, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, including because they have their kids involved with medical families, putting kids fake ties to medical family, and mayors are involved, retired mayors. I don't know who's saying it's demonstrably, a certain type of victim / hyper victim only allowed to speak for the law, because these are overt black KKK and Confederate flag themed roles with some black white women judges and with a detective Samuda, for example. The proverbial black, and I'm using their words, because these are people switching names and forging names involved with child offenders, including medical and sexual, increasingly tied to insurance investigators associated with a Rick Faglione and Mark Faglione. Are people on off Fox Connecticut News, not off WFSB, on off WTNH, involved with wire crimes, with child offenders, leaders of the kids. Further, with the principal child offenders campus, Rick Faglione and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A Timothy O'Brien and a Ray Clough have roles with. I never saw him with John Maiano, but he said with John Maiano and a Paul Zano are involved with them, and people all along Hangdog Lane where it runs into Two Route Highway, and its conjunctions like Route 3, which is also with conjunctive to and adjacent to the state judicial branch offices, increasingly involved with names along those streets and conjunctive and adjacent to it, involved with federal evidences crimes, going out of their way to pretend passions of emotions, acting for other people to record illusions. Rick Faglione has roles with the courts and New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts, with people on my street involved and the area associated with them, involved with the spots next to the United States Capitol and next to the Fox Connecticut News. These are also military, I don't know their names, associated with the Mark Violet and people on off Hartford Hospital. A whole bunch of people on off Hartford Hospital have roles with the Mark Violet and a Justin Klavinskis and a Ray Clough and a Phil Clough. And his father's name is Ray Clough and his mother, in other words, they're involved planting evidences and acting. So, in other words, involved with uses remotely of investigators, and roles with names on all sides in criminal and civil cases, using that to plant evidences leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. I never seen Ray Clough on the campus of Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. People from my grammar school and other schools recorded, confessed, and Central Connecticut State University, they have recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles by people that led my schools with relative predicate acts I recorded when they were trying to record fake things. So they recorded themselves. These are also people timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And the interbranch and branch at the same time calling people rats because they're little rats who put fake conversations. They need to put fake motivations. They're hiding behind how they have a whole bunch of different countries involved with these campuses with them. They have rolls with Koreans, people from Pakistan. They have rolls at the corner of Town Line Drive and South Steen Highway, in the corner of South Steen Highway and Wells Road, Route 175, all along Route 175, something to do with the corners. Increasingly, people that know my name, I don't know their name, and all exceptions still. People that they were the people that were making fake exceptions, planting evidences on our campuses. I didn't have classes with them. The exception with Eric Jensen, that's also his family's roles with state police locations along the Bronx Turnpike. Increasingly, people with Newington locations with military, too, with a Chet Casper and a Heather Hansen, and people with Central Connecticut State University involved with the business office and the bursar's office. They have roles with people with the name Joe DeMauro, too, with former director of the FBI, Robert Luska, his co-defendants, and their family members involved with Newington corners of streets, too, and the exceptions, and were involved with their neighbors too. In other words, and people that have been putting fake things in databases and they won't get on paper. So principal child offenders confessions, and there were also more recorded federal evidences crimes and child abuses associated with the Michael Emmett involved still with the kids and people involved with the name Riley involved with the intercities with the kids in the school boards. The FBI has more roles with upskirt pictures on Twitter, and they have remote uses of cyber police and their family members associated with Pakistan too. Increasingly, and there's people with the name Sullivan and O'Neill involved. And Whiting Forensics had roles before I was born, when I was a little kid, when I was a young man, and since. Increasingly, they have roles planting evidences with people tied to them. On off the campuses, I caught them with the child abuser principal and the rest of them involved. They're also being coached with the judges and prosecutors, judges, a whole bunch of judges, family members, a Judge Killian, and judges associated with the name Spada and Delaferro. A whole bunch of people tied to them that know my name, I don't know their name. And they've been putting fake things in databases at the schools against me, with per Ray Colo too, and per neighbors of theirs, involved with the Dillon family, as one of the cops further on all sides of my house is planting evidences. And there's Officer Jerry Miller, who will court confess, demonstrate, confirm. There are people with the name Harry Kerr, who are also involved with the corners, that corner of the street, wire crimes, mail crimes, with foreign and domestic military, overt criminal enterprises, and people that are putting fake things in databases at campuses and behind people's backs that don't even have classes with them. Trying to make a fake exception too. People wouldn't even see you around, and then to make a fake exception. And not at all. There's a Joshua Julian is one of the ones further on the Facebook page of the Principal Child Defenders Campus, who has roles with torture and extortion of little kids and drugs and medicines crimes, per demonstrated truth by the people who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed him involved on off Harvard Hospital and such, like Joshua Julian and Mark Violet. They have, Ray Colo and Mark Violet are two of the names who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have a Joshua Julian involved with some KKK themed, black themed, and Confederate flag themed people with intelligence community that have been criminally foreign influence, involved with all kinds of scams, identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shifts, something to do with real home break-ins and corners of streets with the people at Central Connecticut State University. Increasingly, they affected confessions to me from people in my third grade class, but in another class. We went in there so they could make exceptions. There's a breaching method that makes exploitation of how they have that. We're not in the same class, but we're in the same class, and we only have one teacher. In other words, and then how class is also of what they have associated with where and how the breaching method before our founders were born. They had assigned the design of the suburbs in the northern colonies and the southern colonies sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly, for that fact treatment nature, torture, extortion, slavery method that we are forbid. We are sensed if we move to communicate it properly. And we have nature itself as means to demonstrate this. We have means to care for the Native Americans properly, individually grouped and together. They had a breaching method against them. We have means to discern that. We have means to discern that the colonists had a breaching method upon them. Don't change it into, oh, they were escaping this or that. In other words, you guys play games. You guys are criminal and ceaseless nature, positive treatments or negative treatments with conviction, with theories too, let alone convictions. Yeah. So in other words, fix the World Trade Center attack thing. And Wethersfield police have the name Sullivan and Cololo. They brought up in their confessions, and they have the Wethersfield town offices, their roles with Afghanistan families and kids through time too, the differences of the women and girls involved with these with that federal evidences crimes, also with overt criminal enterprises like Los Solitos, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by the people involved with the Afghans, all these different intercultural and intra-cultural. Array Cololo also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with a Joe Aiello, who's attaching him. He doesn't even know the extent of it. Roles with a former Mayor Gold is increasingly with his family and people who associate with him with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences crimes, increasingly with people with whiting forensics. And there's a Bob Chase who has whiting forensics involved with him, tactically delusions, rock, criminally foreign influence. He brought up the name Phil Cololo, involved with a police report he was supposed to read to me. Then he said he wouldn't read it. Now these are also people involved with fabricating conversations with police in the police department, fake ties to kids in police department, transcripts that former director of the FBI has roles with, and his defendant capacity still oncoming, and with the Wethersfield Police Department involved switching names, forging names, whole wire crime acts and methods, whole mail crime, whole bunch of falsified police reports, and rolls of names in all sides of criminal and civil cases. These are people that are readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. They have Russian families involved with confessions. I don't know all of their names. Well, some of them are named Peruta, involved with the Elm Streets in Wethersfield and Rocky Hill, as they are conjunctions and adjacent to Route 3 that is increasingly involved with people that, with he said, she said, used to lock in collusions where they can't. In other words, we know the Saudis had roles with the attack and motivations, but our side had roles too at the same time, because that difference is used too. And that wasn't his recorded being and haven't been used that way. And that's recorded. So you have to follow. They put me in fake transcripts with a Leahy family, the father and a son. I believe that they look alike. And in other words, but the son put a clipboard for me. I had no conversation to keep it simple. In other words, a Rick Cianfaglione saw me out before that, and with my neighbor, they have federal evidences crimes with agencies and with judges and prosecutors, and these are the ones involved with some Los Solitos and the pilots of various natures. There are people with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut, who have roles of names all along Route 75 from there through Newington, through Wethersfield, right to those spots where George Washington had to come with James Madison's plan and counter-extort to force a means to win the last battle of the Revolutionary War. But they had to leave slavery entrenched. Now, these are people, a whole bunch of people with the Institute of Living, founded on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822, a mental health place. These are people that are supposed to be countering drugs, who have roles with a whole bunch of different countries on and off campuses, planting evidences together. They're just using sticking fake transcripts and ties to people in databases, and they're doing it at campuses through time. So they tried to put a fake exception tied to me between Ray Reynolds and me. And increasingly, then years later, they try to make fake exceptions. Middlesex Community College also has their Facebook page involved with the New Britain Superior Court Facebook page with passion crimes, with rape threats that were used to force sustain the principal child offender, and roles with Officer Jerry Miller planting evidences on all sides of my campus, of my house in Weathersfield, with people who also did it on all sides of Central Connecticut State University. Tim O'Brien and Ray Collo also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with Rex Paglione and Christopher Walters with federal evidences, crimes with judges and prosecutors on all sides of Central Connecticut State University. Now, these are people with the bursar's office and such in the business office involved with Newington locations. It has a Chet Casper involved and his family involved, and other people I don't even know his wife's maiden name, or if she's married or what. But they have their religious spots involved too, and with the mayors where that's relative. That's part of the hyper evidential. They've been pretending passions and emotions into databases, and they keep bringing up the names of my people around me with their confessions, and they do such also preemptively. I had a algebra teacher named Riley, Mrs. Riley, who Mike Roberts, Mike. She repeated about how she knew that a girl that lived near me at the time, like a daughter of one of the families that still lives there, how she'd been involved kissing someone. In other words, I had nothing to do with the Mike domain. That was the only time it was. I never saw him around campus. Only he was in my class there. These are people who are making fake exceptions of knowing me with people I don't know at all, with that are involved on all Fox Connecticut News and at the spots next to it with the FBI and other agencies, foreign and domestic, and with co-defendants, the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with federal evidences crimes there, and with the spots next to that too, not just next to Fox Connecticut News, next to those spots too. Has something to do with them planting evidences with medical families on campuses and off campuses, making illusions, increasingly communicating other than the pretending is or was said. These are people putting all sides in criminal and civil cases, the lawyers, the interbranch switching and forging names, putting sequence, just because there was an instance. It's all relative because they're readings of statutes that give benefit of the doubt to people based on et cetera, et cetera. They left out the value of what I caught them doing too. So increasingly, people with the Department of Transportation, the Department of Motor Vehicles too, has something to do with their roles, with pilots associated with Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, who were planting evidences also with fire departments and the FBI and courts associated with before the World Trade Center attack, and Eric Burgess and people that work for Harper Courts have been affected to make confessions to me, and then about themselves. In other words, for requests for help from me. Also, a Dean Judd and his family members were criminally foreign influenced to attach, and these are increasingly people tied to a Joe DeMauro and to cousins of his named Scalora. That Weathersfield police also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have federal evidences, crimes, and child abuses roles with people named DeMauro and with people named Scalora involved with other wire crimes and federal evidences planting on my street. I never saw on my street in my life anyone with the name Scalora. Also, these are people involved with the Robert Rodriguez, involved planting evidences with people associated with mayors and fire departments and on-off parks and along Route 3. Are people involved planting evidences, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake exceptions to people knowing each other. So the World Trade Center has roles of all kinds of natures of businesses and natures of negotiations that are involved with keeping wars going in the first place, keeping American history, other things, others ourselves, blame for things our founders communicated to blame on the breaching method, not themselves. You guys got out of your minds. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Let's go. Weathersfield Police, get them on paper, one name in sequence. And I want a response for the digital offenders. There are more Twitter upskirt pictures. There are more pictures of little girls associated in a Leahy family too. Now let's get them on paper, one name in sequence, and get the guy with the name Ian with the upskirt pictures on Twitter. Further, with the principal upskirts associated with this Leahy family too. Get him out of the EMS too. Get him out of the military too. The rest of the ones. I don't have time. Get him on paper, one name in sequence. Get on paper now. Fucking out of your minds. Get on paper.